Let's start with Avi, who is in Ra'anana in Israel itself. Ravi, what would you like to say? Avi, what would you like to say?
Hi, James.
Hello, mate.
I think finally, in all your analysis, you brought up a really important point that Israel is the safe haven. I'm a British-born Jew from London who moved here 13 years ago, and I know existentially I might be safer in London, but I don't have control over my own security. Here, even though, if Iran wants to wipe us all out tomorrow, it's much easier if all the Jews come to Israel and he sends a nuclear bomb. But at the end of the day, we're in control of our own destiny. And I think what Netanyahu has to do, you asked that question, what would I like Netanyahu to do? I don't want to be in a war with Iran, right? My kids slept in a bomb shelter that night. There's nothing more fearful, and I don't think people truly appreciate and understand what it's like to be told that there are 300, missiles and UAVs and ballistic missiles on the way to you, and, potentially no one knows what the result of that's going to be. I think Netanyahu should have attacked immediately at the same time, so Iran can't just say, okay, we're done now, we threw our punch, we're done. That's not how this part of the world works. I think you have to project strength. We have to show the world, yes, you can ask us for restraint, but what guarantees do we have? And you're going to argue, well, we're the warmongers here, but at the end of the day...
No, I'm not. Don't tell me what I'm going to argue. I mean, just pause for a moment to reflect upon what you've already said, because you have rendered the Iranian response to the attack upon the consulate in Damascus both necessary and right under your own analysis of how that part, in your own words, how that part of the world works.
Well, I think the attack on the consulate, I think you have to look at in context as well. So you're talking about an attack that was not on the embassy. It was on the IRGC building next to it, which was being run by the military.
You heard what Keir Starmer...
Which was being used to plan further attacks on us.
Yes. So the Iranian attacks upon military positions in Israel were okay then?
Well, I think if you want to start a war, yes.
No, but Israel attacked under your analysis. I mean, the distinction between the consulate building and the neighbouring building is, for some people, it's moot. But as Keir Starmer pointed,
I'm not sure why you're focusing on that point, Nick.
Well, because it's
clearly proven.
Yes, go on.
James, it's clearly proven that the October 7th massacres were funded, directed by Iran. It's clear that Iran is...
It's clear that Iran is a supporter of Hamas. But I was just, and we'll continue with your broader analysis, I was just pointing out that your phrase, that is how things have to be done in that part of the world, could equally apply to Iran responding to the attack upon on their territory in Damascus, as it could to Israel responding to the attack upon their territory in Israel. So I don't want to say convince me or persuade me, because that trivializes the broader conversation. But explain to me why risking, I have to say, a full-scale regional war. That phrase is now being bandied about quite casually in all of the analysis. Why you think risking a full-scale regional war would serve your need and desire, your right even, to safety better than restraint?
Well, you have a country in Iran being run by Islamic fundamentalists who are sworn to the destruction of Israel, who have been stating this and working actively towards it for the last 30 years.
Yes.
So my question is, what better serves my safety, to continue that until they have nuclear weapons, or to say, yeah, it's going to be really, really terrible. I'm going to have to live through a war.
You've gone a little further.
I have 4 children here.
No, I
don't
hear
want
you.
to live through a war, right? I don't want to live through a war. But I also know as a Jew, and I've seen my history over the last 2,000 years, and I've walked through the camps of Auschwitz. I know how this ends. I know how this ends if we don't stand up and fight for ourselves. I know how it ends when the world turns around and says, yeah, you know what, we'll look after you. It didn't happen 75 years ago in living memory. My grandmother, who had to escape on the kinder transport, always turned around to me and said, better the world tells us tells us off after we defend ourselves. But we can't live by those guarantees anymore.
So no, hang on.
Are we going to hang around until Iran has a nuclear weapon?
I don't know. I mean that is a very, very powerful point that you make. So but you've gone a little further than I understood when you said that Netanyahu should have responded immediately. You want Israel to declare war on Iran and seek the annihilation of the ruling regime in Tehran. And I have to remind you, Avi. Hang on. Hang on. I have to remind you of the civilian casualties that would obviously entail. But that's what you want.
No, that's not what I want.
Sorry, carry on.
I don't want a regional war. I want the Iranian people to stand up and get rid of the Ayatollah.
Yeah, but the question is, what do you want Netanyahu to do? The question is, what do you want Benjamin Netanyahu to do, not what do you want the Iranian people to do? The Iranian people who, of course, in the main, are both opposed to and repressed by the regime of the Ayatollahs. But that's not the phone-in. The phone-in today is, what do you, as someone who fits perfectly the caucus of people I want to hear from first today, what do you want your Prime Minister to do?
I want him to ensure that he does everything he possibly can.
I mean actions, things we can measure and describe, not wishes, but actions.
I think that he uses the international pressure to impose every single sanction possible on Iran.
But the international pressure at the moment is urging restraint from him. So what do you want him to do? In the context of the response to the attack this weekend, when the general says there will be a retaliation, but it remains unclear what form the retaliation would take, and it remains unclear whether or not it would be forceful enough to tip the worsening violence into a full-scale regional war, what do you want that retaliation to look like, to be?
I want it to set back the nuclear program in Iran.
So what would that involve, Avi? I feel like we're dancing on pinheads here. What do you want them to? What do you want them to blow up or attack or nothing? Something? Anything?
I don't know the military options available, but what I do know is that unless the world can give us proper guarantee that instead of Biden sending $9 billion, right, which he did to the Ayatollahs just before October 7th. You know, there's an incredible Economist article from September.
I am kind of really clear about what I'm asking today, and I fully accept that you say you're not really qualified to answer it. But I also sense there's a reluctance, perhaps, to speak in slightly vaguer terms. I mean, you do, because you said, I wish Netanyahu had attacked Iran straight away, which would be a declaration of war, wouldn't it?
Well, how is sending 300 UAVs and ballistic missiles not a declaration of war?
Well, because as Iran has sought to explain, and you can agree with them or disagree with them, that it was a sort of muscle-flexing exercise that killed precisely nobody.
And it only precisely killed nobody through basically an incredible defence that no one knew would happen.
Well, hang on, and the 72-hour warning.
If we destroy the nuclear reactor,
but I wanted to learn from you today.
Injure anyone? Is that not a declaration of war? Then that's fine. That's great.
Yeah,
yes. I'd like us to.
But as you said yourself, none of us know how feasible that is. I mean, as a general rule, blowing up nuclear reactors is quite hazardous, I think.
Yeah,
but I hear you. So we're not going to reach a point. We're not going to reach a point where you can say, I want him to do, and that probably highlights the difficulty that the government has in defining or describing what retaliation would actually look like. But if it is another round of cyber attacks or assassinations, that won't be enough for you. You want something more substantive than that. You want something that damages the capability of Iran to inflict real damage on Israel.
I think right now what we're doing, if we do nothing, is the same as what we've been doing with Hamas for the last 10 years, and we saw how that ended on October 7th.
Yes, I know not what, but it must be the terror of the earth, as King Lear might put it.
I think we need something that serves two purposes. One, reminds the region that we're not the punching bag. Two,
I think that's pretty clear.
Sets the Ayatollahs back. Sets the Ayatollahs back to the point where the people of Iran can start the uprising that they need. And three, has the global consequences on that.
And this would involve Netanyahu ignoring the global pressure for restraint. And that is a risk, I suppose, although history teaches us that the support might be temporarily diminished, but it would never disappear.